Welcome back, Wogglers. So today we're going to talk about blueprints, and I want to do a quick overview because there's a couple of things that I have clients that always get very confused about when it comes to blueprints. So we're starting here with a deal because the deal is the easiest example of when it would be appropriate to use a blueprint. So in most deals have stages that they go through in order to be considered won or lost. And so what a blueprint does is you can use a blueprint to identify and then require certain things that need to happen in order to get from one stage to the other. So as this example, for the initial inquiry, in order to get to research destination stage, there might be specific information that needs to be gathered before you can move on to the next one. So for example, in this, we'd have the initial inquiry, and then we'd have to choose a couple of destination ideas before we could then research the destination. That's the type of information that you have to have in order to get to the next stage. So let's go into the blueprint. All right, so you click your setup gear in the top right corner. And then we've been doing a lot of stuff with automation, but today we're gonna go down to process management and click blueprint underneath process management. Now, when you first turn on your CRM, there are a couple of example blueprints that we have here in the system that kind of just get created. You could take a look at those to kind of see how they're structured, but I'm going to create a new blueprint today that we can work off of in the future. We're going to call this the deal blueprint. And the module we're basing it off of is deals. We'll choose the service layout. And then if you have one layout, it would just be the one default layout. If you have multiple, you would have to create multiple blueprints for each layout that your organization actively uses if you want there to be blueprints on every layout. Now, when you choose a field, this is the field that has the different stages. So it would need to be a pick list field that has set options, and then you move through those set options. So for us, we're going to use stage. And then you can set criteria. So for example, if you have a very structured process for one specific type of deal and you need a blueprint just for that, then what you can do is you can set the criteria for deal type, that specific deal type that you need the structured process, and then the blueprint would only apply to those deals. We're going to allow this to apply to all of them. Go ahead and click next. All right, so it brings you to this creation page is what I would say. And as you can see on the right-hand side here, you have available states, which are your stages. So we'll start with initial inquiry. And then as we saw on the other one, in order to get from initial inquiry to research destination, so in order to get from one to the other, we need to collect information. So what you do is you pull down, you can click create a transition. All right, we're gonna call this destinations because that was the information that we needed to collect at that time. You can name your transitions whatever you want, whatever makes sense to you, whatever makes sense to your team. But what this is gonna do is it's gonna, on the deal record itself, it's gonna create a button called destinations that your user will then click. So this is a great time to kind of talk about this idea of before, during, and after, because since you are transitioning from one stage to another, there are certain, it's kind of esoteric, but states between that transition. So you have before the transition, you have during the transition, once your user has clicked that button and it's collecting the information required, and then you have after. So if you have certain things that need to happen after you have completed that transition, you can do it then. However, once you have completed all of the things in the during section of this button, then no matter what, your deal stage will have changed from initial inquiry to research destinations. So in the Before tab, you can do things like set permissions. You can do things like set criteria in order to be able to see those buttons. So for example, if you wanted to block the user from being able to even get into that transition button, you can set criteria on that transition button and it won't show up unless that criteria is met. In your during stage, here's where you're going to say, I want you to fill out these fields. You can also put up little flash messages for people, remind them to do things. You can create checklists that your user has to check off and do a certain set of tasks before they can get from one stage to the other. So, lots of options in this during stage in order for them to gather the information or do the set amount of tasks to get from one stage to the next. And then once they have completed everything in that button and you have transferred the deal from the initial inquiry stage to the research destination stage, you do have this spot in the blueprint to go ahead and set certain automations. Send an email notification out, create tasks automatically, create meetings automatically, update fields. You can create records. So if you have a custom module for vacations, in this one you can have a vacation record be created. You can hit webhooks. You can create custom actions using Deluge or JavaScript. Lots and lots of options that you have here of automatic things happening in essentially a stage change. All right, so that is a good overview of Blueprint. One of the things that I do want to point out in this overview is this is really created for a structured process. If you have, as example, we'll go back to the coding stage. So let's say the next one is build itinerary. And we create this lovely line of stage, transition, and we have all these wonderful automations that happen once you've finished the transition. Everything looks great. If ever in your process you need to be able to get from build itinerary back to research destination, if that ever happens, you must build that into the blueprint to go backwards. If you do not, you will be stuck, because once a deal or whatever type of record that you've created this blueprint for, once it enters the blueprint, the stage fields are locked. They are locked and a part of the blueprint, and if you have not built flexibility into your blueprint, then your blueprint will not be flexible. You will have to go through the entire process and get to the end of the blueprint to exit the blueprint before making any of those updates, unless you build it into your blueprint. All right, I think that that is it for the overview. See us next time, and we'll go in a deeper dive into all of the different options that you have in the before, during, and after, and all of the really cool things, because blueprints can be a super cool tool. See you in the next one. Woggle woggle.